So the first tool in our toolkit when it comes to listening to people is understanding human nature. And Abraham Maslow is one of those people who helps us to understand how it is that human beings are. He came up with what we refer to as Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We often picture it in a triangle or a pyramid. He never used the pyramid drawing himself, but it helps us to understand how it was that he was thinking. How it is that if you're taking a look at this pyramid, we have to address the base needs. The higher needs we can't even begin to address unless the lower needs are met. We are always going to focus on these lower needs and make sure that these needs are met before we can address higher needs. So that when the student walks into Becky's classroom, if his or her basic needs are not being met, they're not thinking about learning that day. Follow me? If they have a hungry stomach or didn't get enough sleep the night before, got news for you. They're not interested in higher needs. Right? The need that I have right now at this moment is to get some sleep. Or to eat. I got to go to the bathroom right now. That becomes a need for me. Ooh, let's talk about some of these then. So for Abraham Maslow, his hierarchy of needs then talks about how it is that the most fundamental needs are at the bottom. We need to address those first. And then there are these rising needs. We call it this pyramid or this hierarchy of needs, where at the top is self-actualization, being the person you were created to be. Okay, it's nice to think about that, but when I'm hungry or need to get some sleep, I'm not thinking about being the person I could be. Follow me? I'm thinking about getting some sleep right now. So let's talk about the first base. The base needs that we have are physiological needs, which simply means that my human body, I was born into a human body, and all of us who are human beings have certain physiological or physical needs. For instance, all animals, in order to survive, all animals need air and water and food. And so if you put me into a place where there is no air, what am I going to be thinking about? Air, and how much I need it. If you make me go a few days without eating, what am I going to be thinking about? Food, how hungry I am. If I go without sleep, I'm thinking about sleep, etc. So physiological needs, we need to meet our physical needs before anything else. Which means, for instance, it's taking in these things, but it's also getting rid of these things. Which is why Abraham Maslow said it's not just, it's food, yes, but it's also excretion. Meaning, if I can't get rid of this food, if I've been eating for a few days and I can't get rid of it, what happens? Suddenly I'm thinking about that. Follow me? So it's thinking about the physiological needs, things like air and food and water, taking them in and releasing them. The satisfaction of sexual desires, my body is telling me something, is giving me some cue. I was born into a human body, and humans reproduce like all other animals, right? My body has certain sexual organs in the way that other plants and animals do. Clothing and shelter. Clothing and shelter provide protection from the elements, and so if it's a cold day outside, I need to be thinking about things like warmth, things like shelter. So that's the bottom rung of things that I need to take care of, these physiological needs before I think about anything else. I'm not thinking about going to class tonight if I am tired. Follow me? Those needs come first. The next level, we often refer to as safety needs. Safety needs take precedence over other needs. They dominate our behavior. For instance, children generally have a greater need to feel safe, right? So once I know that all of my physiological needs are taken care of, the next need is for me to be able to feel safe. Right? If Father Jamie picks on me every time I go to class, I've got news for you. I'm not going back to class. I don't feel safe. Right? We have that desire to feel safe. Interestingly, we often relive situations where we didn't feel safe. Post-traumatic stress disorder, right? What is that? It was me being in a situation where I did not feel safe, and it's almost like being in that situation again. It's that desire not to be in those situations again, because when I think of situations like that where I didn't feel safe, it puts me on edge. Situations like war or natural disaster, family violence, childhood abuse, right? When you're a child who's been abused, how do you go from that state to that state of actually being able to feel safe? Safety can also mean different other types of security, like economic or financial security. That's a type of safety. To be able to know that, that my job is not on the line today. I can feel safe in my job. Or I can feel, that I have some savings to rely on, that I have some insurance. They're part of our safety needs as human beings. Next level concerns belonging and love. So once my physical needs are taken care of, and once I know that my safety is taken care of, then I start thinking about belonging and being loved. Love and belonging, then, it involves our social circles, right? Physiological needs is just me. I'm going to take care of myself first. I'm going to make sure I'm getting sleep and food and all that first. Okay, once I start going to higher needs, then I'm thinking about other people and my belonging to these other people. Interestingly, this is especially strong in children, this need to be loved and this need to belong. So much so that children will it will override their need for safety. Think about it for a moment. Why would a child stay in a situation where he or she is being abused, right? They sacrifice their own safety. Why? This need for love and belonging, or what they believe to be love and belonging, right? Peer pressure, the same thing with peer pressure, right? Why would a person join a gang? That doesn't seem like a safe, brilliant idea on any given day. It's that need for belonging. Some factors impact our ability to form and maintain emotionally significant relationships. So it's simply acknowledging that as we grow to be adults, we start thinking about these, how do we form these relationships where our need for belonging and love is somehow taken care of. In our social groups, we need to feel a sense of belonging and acceptance. We need to love and be loved by others. If I go to a church, if I go to Holy Family this weekend, and you know what, I'm not really feeling it, am I going to go back? Right? Why do many of us go back to places like Holy Family? It's that feeling of family. That feeling of, I feel at home here. I like this place. I feel like I belong here. Love and belonging. That's the next level. So far, so good? We're coming to the top of the pyramid almost. So the second last level is esteem. Esteem is a need to feel respected and valued by others. It gives us a sense of contribution or value. So not only belonging to others, but feeling that others respect and value me. Often, many of us search through the things that we do, things like our profession or our hobbies, right? How it is that we find ways, we do things, and we get this positive reinforcement because I do something, and this person says how well I did that, and so what do I find myself doing again? Hey, that was pretty cool. It creates this cycle, right? It reinforces whatever behavior that we're doing. Imbalances here can result in a low self-esteem, an inferiority complex, weakness, or helplessness. So esteem is important. And if you don't have that, then the flip side of that is that for instance, you could be falling into an inferiority complex or low self-esteem, etc. Lower levels of esteem. So Maslow talked about lower levels and higher levels of esteem. What's the difference? At the lower levels of esteem, we're talking about the need for respect and status and recognition, fame, prestige, attention, right? At higher levels, though, we're talking about a need for self-respect, strength, competence, mastery, self-confidence, independence, freedom. It's sort of like two different levels of esteem, if you will. And then at the very top of the pyramid, we have self-actualization, which is simply the realization of your full potential. You're not thinking about these if you're concentrating on those lower needs, right? If you need sleep right now, you're not thinking about this. But after all these other needs are taken care of, when you're at the very top, you're thinking about how can I most fully be the person I was created to be. Right? My physical needs are taken care of. My safety and security is taken care of. I don't need to worry about that. I don't have to worry about being loved or belonging. I don't have to worry about esteem issues. Esteem is just fine. I am thinking about who did God create me to be? Who am I meant to be in this world? Self-actualization. Doing and being all that I can do and be. Being the person that I must be. The example that Maslow often used was, for instance, the desire that a person feels to be the ideal parent. Once I've taken care of all these other needs, how can I be the best at what I'm doing? Okay, I'm a parent. I find myself with kids. How can I be the best possible parent in this situation? How can I be the best family member or friend or coworker? It's realizing my full potential.
If you feel inferior, you feel like you're no good, and your wife tells you you're no good, and you tell your wife the same thing in front of the children.
Yeah.
How can you pass self-esteem when you tear each other apart at home?
How can you, or as we'll say later this evening, how can you love others if you don't first
love yourself?
love yourself? Right?
If
you have a negative view of yourself, how is that going to translate into your view of others? Ooh, right?
That's one of
This can be dangerous.
problems we have in self-esteem.
So what happens then? What do we do with that, right? When Becky in her classroom sees a student with low self-esteem, oh man, how do you help that person to higher levels of self-actualization when that's not taken care of for them, right? Maybe, yes, physical needs are taken care of, but higher needs are not being taken care of.
But unfortunately, there are so many children that none of these needs are being taken care of. They're hungry, they're poor, they don't have adequate clothing, they don't have a safe place to live, they live in a car, or they live in a car with their parents, and as far as belonging, there really is no family. It's very difficult.
Yeah. So part of that is for us to recognize that when people come to us, part of what they could be coming to us about is that some of these needs have not been met for them
Exactly.
over time. And maybe they're not basic physical needs. Maybe it's more, a person as a child had so many experiences of not being able to feel safe that they just don't feel safe around other persons. Or they didn't receive that love and that sense of belonging that they needed as a child, and so it's just very difficult for them as adults. It's difficult. How do we help one another to recognize where we were deficient, where our needs were not met in the past? Those are some crucial conversations.
It's very difficult for a person who has never really been shown love. They may have been fed and watered, so to speak, and clothing and everything, but never ever received really any real love, physical love, hugs, whatever. It's very difficult for that person when they become an adult and have children. If they have never been shown love, they don't know how to show love. I've seen that so many times. And that causes problems for the child that's come along because they don't really feel like they are being loved, even though the person loves you dearly, but they cannot show it. They don't know how. Nobody will show them.
Interesting. So there are different levels of needs. We all have. So maybe our needs as children were taken care of at a basic level, but maybe not at a higher level.
Exactly.
I'll point to an example. Maybe Father Jamie may not be the most touchy-feely, huggy person in the world. Oh, maybe if we were to look, if we were to understand one another and our needs, it probably would help us to make sense. How we understand ourselves and how our needs have been met or not in the past and in the present.
Or how we understand seeing this in other people.
I don't know.
Understanding, well, the reason they're not this way, this person is not huggy or whatever. In fact, they act sort of like, some people don't like to be hugged, or, they never have. And so,
fascinating conversation.
you have to, you really have to think about that. Ooh, that person never got any loving and hugging and stuff, Let's pray with them. Shake your hand.
That's right. Vincent?
As I heard it a whisper, doesn't that come from generational differences on some of it?
So it could be that certain people raised in certain cultures
Cultural. Yeah.
and or in certain eras do things in different ways. So you're exactly right.
When I first came to Texas,
It's true.
and made a lot of Hispanic friends, I thought, oh my gosh, this is so different than the way I was raised.
Where were you raised?
Well, in Memphis,
Okay.
in a family, German on one side,
There you go.
very strict, not too much hugging and loving. Italian on the other, a lot of talk. Yeah, I saw such a difference in the Hispanic culture, and I really like it, you know.
So part of it could be cultural, right? I was raised in Ohio, 30% of my blood is from German ancestry as well. That forms a person to be a different way. You know, when you come into, say, for instance, the Latino, Hispanic culture, like, oh, these people are like a little too friendly. Different cultures. It's fascinating to see those differences and how it is that those needs are met in different ways in different cultures.
There are a lot of children that are very poor, that come from very poor homes, but they are loved so by the parents, and even though they're poor, but they're strong, I mean. And I seen the other part, I was at another school that was very affluent, and they had all the needs, and I was like wondering, gosh, you guys have everything, and here you are, unhappy.
Did they have love, right?
They didn't have
Their
the
parents
love.
may have provided them
They
the
didn't-
fanciest
parents didn't have
clothes and
time.
toys, but did they have love?
Parents go.
They also
"Yes."
didn't have any discipline.
Right. Marisela?
But do we also at times
Sure,
replace our needs with materialistic things?
Do we replace our needs sometimes with materialistic things?
Yes.
Oh, how interesting. I mean, in terms of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if I'm not getting love or belonging in certain places, well then, maybe those things are going to come to mean less to me than other things, like material possessions.
The American,
Well, I believe that's what happens to a lot of these young kids who are growing up in these families that have a lot of money, but they never have any parents' time. They are being taken care of by nannies. They are, parents are going off on trips. They have a lot of money. They give their kids everything under the sun except for one thing, themselves.
The song, what is it called? The Cat's in the Cradle?
Yeah.
Right? Talks about a young man growing up without that sense of love
Without any
from his
sense
father.
of.
Joe?
I just say that, I'm sure the claims in them for most indigenous Americans, what we call Indians, a child belonged to the
The
tribe.
whole tribe.
It was not. And so there was always that, I guess you might, love is a word that's overused. I mean, but they were even, in some tribes, young infants were nursed by every woman in the tribe. They were part of the family.
Different sense of belonging.
Yeah, they had, everybody took care of it. It's like, I live on a cul-de-sac, and many years ago, when I bought this little house and moved there, there were these young children that started coming up. You know, they were born, and then here they are, and they're right there. And we became the village, you know? Not only the parents, some of the parents had some physical problems, and so the neighbors, we all, it's just like, you know, the child could come here for whatever reason, you could go there. You know, they always had plenty of food, they always had plenty of attention, they always had somebody watching after them, and they were always given a lot of love. And it was very interesting because it was just 5 little houses, you know, but we called ourselves the village, and other children would come in from the neighborhood and play, and they knew they were safe, you know?
So interesting, Stephen Covey is going to use a word later this evening, synergy, simply meaning, you know, when we all come together, maybe there's a possibility that if it were just this person and his or her mother or father, maybe they wouldn't get the love that they need, But maybe if all of us together, there were a greater synergy, greater relationship. Imagine if we all felt this responsibility for this child. Maybe that child would be finding its need for love and belonging met by other persons. I have a feeling that happens all the time. If the child is not getting it at home, that child is going to be looking to other adults, other figures, who become special figures in their lives because they feel that sense of love and or belonging, that sense of esteem, of being valued, respected. So to conclude with Maslow then, he had at the top of the pyramid the self-actualization. He didn't picture it as a pyramid, but the highest needs were self-actualization. But he actually had this other one called self-transcendence. He later added another dimension that he called self-transcendence, which simply was acknowledging that there's a point at which when all these needs are taken care of and we are the person that we were meant to be, that we're thinking not only about ourselves, but we're thinking about others. And that's self-transcendence. Transcending myself and seeing how it is that there's a higher goal outside of myself. And that's manifested in altruism, being generous, recognizing other people's needs, and spirituality. That there is someone else who is God and Lord of this universe that's not me. So there are various criticisms as well of Maslow's hierarchy. That is to say, is this like based on some empirical evidence? It was a theory that he created. We have to realize when we're looking through these lenses to be able to help people understand who they are and to be able to understand who we are, we have to understand that there are criticisms of Maslow's hierarchy, and one of them is that Maslow was creating this based on his experience of the world. So he created this model, and it may have worked for him. This may not work for everyone, which is why we say it may be ethnocentric. Okay, it may work for some people of some cultures, but maybe if someone from some other culture or some other place or time were to create it again, maybe it would look different.
Well, the thing is, this is perfection. If you look at this is all the needs are met here, 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 and here. That is perfection. That is perfect.
The
life.
ideal world.
Perfect.
That's right.
Real world. But we're living a real world,
There we
so there are going to be some different problems.
Life is not that neat.
Life is not that easy.
So it's a lovely triangle, but I doubt that any of our lives is that neat where it's this and then this and then this
Everything
and
is
that.
perfect.
No, it's more messy than that. It's more messy than that. Where we're concerned about various needs at different times in different situations, right? So that's Abraham Maslow gives us one tool in our toolkit to be able to better understand ourselves and other people. A better way of understanding human nature.